Springtime in Jericho. It's springtime. Nature's waking up, but Jesus is still trying to find a way to fully wake up the apostles. It had been almost a year, and he knew God had to open some doors of learning quickly, or else these 12 men were not going to make it. And Jesus and his band of merry men had just made the 70-mile walk through the hill country from Jerusalem to Galilee. And this was their final time to visit their families. Or for him to visit his family, should I say. And on the way up, he heals 10 lepers. And they probably skirted the area that Jesus had gone through his 40-day ordeal of temptations. And imagine the vivid memories that must have flooded through Jesus' heart. You know, if you knew that it was your last time to walk that trail, to see these things, would things be a little more vivid? Probably. And once in Galilee, they each spent time with their loved ones, swapping amazing stories, and prepare to make the annual trip back to Jerusalem for Passover. So a few days go by, and on the way back to Jerusalem, Jesus decides not to go back through the hill country and through Samaria down to Jerusalem. He decided to walk a different route. And this time they decided to go on level ground, because it wasn't just Jesus and the 12 now. Now the whole families are going to move with them, because they're heading to Passover in Jerusalem. And it was a lot easier to walk next to the Jordan River. So they go on the east side of the Jordan River. And this was the area that Jesus' cousin, John the Baptist, lived and ministered. And they walked right past the area that Jesus received Holy Spirit and began his ministry. You think he remembered the exact location? You bet he did. A larger group. And it's not just Jesus and the 12, it's a much larger group now, consisting of family and friends and random travelers. And they were all headed to Jerusalem for the upcoming holiday. You ever been to a busy airport right before Thanksgiving or Christmas? I mean, it's packed. Flights are canceling, boards are changing, it's crazy. That's how it was heading toward Jerusalem, sans the airplane and airport. And the trail might have been flat, but the learning was steep. See, a winter of introspection was about to blossom into a fruitful springtime. And what was about to happen happened in one day's time. Everything we're going to cover here was one day. And it's going to take 3 of the 4 Gospels to flesh out this story. It's sort of like having 3 different cameras rolling to catch every different angle of a scene. Or they have them spread out through this city we're going to walk into so that nothing gets missed. Now, there really wasn't cameras. It's just how I think of this. The lesson of the day. And as they get close to the place to cross over the spring waters rushing down the Jordan River, this is spring, water was melting on Mount Hermon. It was coming through Galilee, racing down. The banks were swollen. It's springtime. And Jesus tells the group a few little tidbits of information. He explains to them that by the way, I'm going to get tortured. And I'm going to get killed when we get to Jerusalem. Just thought I'd throw that out there. Okay, let's keep going, guys. His mom was there. How do you think she felt to hear that bit of information? And right after that statement, without missing a beat, he was asked by the mother of James and John, a couple of the apostles. They'd been with him for a year. And she asked if her sons could hold a special place of leadership and respect in the future kingdom. That's Matthew 20:17 through 28. And these were not mama's boys. Remember, they owned a fishing business, these guys. Peter was in that same fishing business. These were tough guys. She was just that comfortable with Jesus. That's how approachable a great leader should be. James and John also ask for this honor after their mom did. That's Mark 10:35 through 39. Only problem was the other apostles heard this. It didn't go over too well with the other 10. And so Jesus lays out the lesson plan of the day. And this is important. The whole day is going to keep coming back to this lesson. And it's going to end with this same lesson. Mark chapter 10, verse 41 through 45. I'm going to read it from the Message because I can. And when the other 10 heard this conversation, they lost their tempers with James and John. Jesus got them together to settle things down. You've observed how godless rulers throw their weight around, he said. And when people get a little power, how quickly it goes to their heads. It's not going to be that way with you. Whoever wants to be great must become a servant. Whoever wants to be first among you must be your slave. That is what the Son of Man's done. He's come to serve and not be served, and then to give away his life in exchange for many who are held hostage. That's the big lesson. Pour out your life in service. See, before the day's out, that lesson in true leadership and loving service will be experienced over and over and over again, culminating in a final incident. See, loving leadership mixed with personalized service is our ultimate springtime. Camera 1, take 1. East Side blind guy, action. Luke 18, verse 35. And it came to pass that as he was come nigh unto Jericho, a blind man sat by the wayside begging. So they'd crossed over the Jordan. Then they walked uphill a mile or so, a couple of miles. The Jordan's at about 1,250 feet below sea level. And Jericho's about 850 feet below sea level. The Mediterranean is at sea level. And Jerusalem is up on a hill, a city on a hill, about 1,250 feet above sea level. So that's sort of the dimension. It's real low where they are. Then they go up to Jericho, and Jerusalem's way up here. And it came to pass, when he was come nigh unto Jericho, a certain blind man sat by the wayside begging. They'd crossed over the Jordan, probably on a ferry, because it was high water, and they were getting close to the ancient city of Jericho. Remember, this is a big troop of people. It wasn't just Jesus and the 12. Some of them had their moms with them. He did, and James did at least. James and John were brothers. It was a steep uphill hike to get up there for a couple of miles. Might be like going up maybe not like the incline over here, but it was something. And see, they had been in a valley the entire trip, and it might have taken them a couple of days to go those 17 miles. I don't know. Or 70 miles, excuse me. It was 70 miles from Galilee to that turnoff into Jericho. And the crowd is still dealing with the knowledge that they're all heading directly to the place that Jesus will be tortured and killed. Now that would weigh on them. They've been with this guy. Mary bore this child. This helpless emotion, combined with the seething anger at John and James for asking Jesus such a stupid thing as getting special treatment in the future, turn them all inward because they wanted it too. They got there first. And Jesus needs to turn their attention around, needs to turn it outward from inward. Now this blind man's begging. He's asking repeatedly for handouts. Verse 36, and hearing the multitude pass by, he asked what it meant. What's going on? The blind man noticed it was an unusually large and animated crowd passing by, and he wondered, what's up? See, that road was his internet. He logged on. 37, and they told him that Jesus of Nazareth passes by. And he cried, saying, Jesus, thou son of David, have mercy on me. Now see, obviously, he had heard of Jesus and the many healings he had done, or he would not have said this. And this was his chance. Today was his lucky day. And this word cried out here simply means to say, hello. It's like, yoo-hoo, somebody notice me. I'm over here. So that's pretty much the attitude he had. Hey, I'm right here, Jesus. I'm right over here. Look this way. Verse 39, and they which went before rebuked him. So the few people that were at the front of the crowd, they rebuked him. They confronted him that he should hold his peace. And so he cried so much the more, thou son of David, have mercy on me. Now this poorly focused and mentally introverted crowd told this man in need to shut up. This heart-focused blind man clearly saw what he wanted, and this time nobody was going to stop him from getting it. I think we have to learn to see with our heart more than our eyes. See, this blind man upped the ante here. He's going to gamble it all on his next move. No longer he's using his polite inside voice, hello, Jesus. This time he starts screaming his lungs out. The word cried means something different. It's, Son of David, have compassion on me, help me. And he just kept saying it over and over, help me, have compassion. He's screaming his lungs out. And it worked. And I think, push until they call security. You want something, push until they call security. And then keep pushing. If you want something, go get it. No matter who's watching. Verse 40, and Jesus stood, means he stopped walking, and commanded him to be brought unto him. And when he was come near, he asked him. So they brought this guy up to him. He asked him, saying, what will that I should do unto thee? And he said, Lord, that I might receive my sight, I want to see. And Jesus said unto him, see, receive your sight. Your believing saved you. And immediately he received his sight and followed him, glorifying God. And all the people, when they saw it, gave praise unto God. Big deal. To see somebody get healed like that, it just blew their minds. They may have seen this guy as they went down that path a time or two. He's probably from Jericho. Might have been led there or went there every day that was his spot, his rock, his bench. Now, did any of you notice a prayer before that healing? What about a special laying on of hands? Was there any of that? Was there any talk about the optic nerve and all the neurological stuff in his heart and mind? Did Jesus take him to a quiet place to avoid the gawkers? No. No. There's some big lessons here on leadership. See, an alternate lesson here is to stop copying everyone else. Get past your own mistraining. Trust me, if you've been raised in any church, you have been mistrained. If you've been trained in any family, you have been mistrained. You know, it's just the way it is. If we always do things a certain way, you know, then you're going to keep getting that same answer. It's time to shift up. Be free. We have to be free-thinking peoples if we're going to receive what we need to receive here. See, healing's available to anyone who believes. Figure out how to believe so you can give. It's a big lesson here today. See, the crowd's pumped. Attitudes are changing. Something amazing just happened. The once blind guy is now part of that crowd. Imagine what he would have done. He would have been wanting to be close to Jesus, wouldn't he? He would have been grabbing people. I can't believe it. Maybe he's seeing people for the first time. He recognized their voice. That's what you look like. I thought you were better looking. No. Or you're better looking than I thought. I don't know. He was excited. Camera 2. Take 1. West Side blind guy. Action. Now the crowd's growing. They're surging through the narrow streets of Jericho. Windows are swinging open, the shutters. Moms, look out. Kids run from their homes to join this excited party. What's going on? Everybody wants to know. Mark 10, verse 46. And they came to Jericho, and as he went out of Jericho. So what does that mean? They came to and then went out. This first guy was at the east side of Jericho, on the Jordan side. Now they go through Jericho. And it says, as they went out of Jericho with his disciples, and now a great number of people. It wasn't just his entourage now. Now other people are starting to come. They're building up momentum. And a great number of people, blind Bartimaeus, the son of Timaeus, sat by the highway side begging. Now, was the first guy named? No. This guy's named, and so is his dad. Why? I don't know. Don't know. And they entered Jericho. See, they entered Jericho on the lower east side, and they're exiting on the upper west side. And this is a totally different blind man. This man is named, as is his dad. He was begging like the first guy back on the east side. See, the word blind means opaque or smoky. It may have been that his eyes were white and hazy. You've seen that. It could also mean that what he saw was hazy. And like being very nearsighted or having a very high astigmatism. So I don't know which this really means, because blind could be either one. Verse 47, and when he heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth, so again, he must have known who that was, he began to cry out and say, Jesus, thou son of David, have mercy on me. Now, why would he say the exact same words as the first guy? Somebody told him what the first guy said. Could have even been the first blind guy knew where other blind guys sat and might have ran out in front of the crowd and told him what he did to get healed. What might you do? Yeah. See, the guy might have been running point out front, telling all the other blind guys what had just happened. I don't know. Somebody told him. Now, this Bartimaeus dude, he didn't start off with, hello, yoo-hoo, Jesus, it's me. He didn't have a little flag on his tricycle, to be noticed, He didn't have a special cane, it was, he didn't do that. He didn't do it like the first guy. Right off the bat, Bart went into full-blown crazy talk mode. I mean, he just went flat out, Son of David, have compassion on me! Help me! Son of David, have compassion on me! Help me! He didn't ease into his request like the first guy. See, never be tentative when you want something. See, expect healing no matter who tries to shut down your believing process. Expect abundance no matter what tries to shut down your believing process. 48. And many charged him now, that he should hold his peace. And he cried the more a great deal, Thou Son of David, have mercy on me. It stopped Jesus in his tracks. 49. And Jesus stood still and commanded him to be called. And they called the blind man. See, he didn't talk to the blind man here. This will be important in a minute. And so they called the blind man, saying, Be of good comfort, rise, he calleth thee. And I love how the same people who forcefully told him to shut up, fool, now they're going, Kind sir, today is your lucky day. You know, Jesus would like to see you. May we accompany you to the man. Verse 50, and he, casting away his garment, rose and came to Jesus. And I think such drama. You know, this is going to be the greatest act of his life. This is what he's dreamed of, maybe his whole life. This casting away means one of two things. One, he just threw off his cloak and then walked with the men to Jesus. Or two, which I'll bet is more the case with the independent spirit that was in this guy. And two, the men tried to pick him up and escort him physically and guide him to Jesus, and he shrugged out of the robe and walked by himself to Jesus. I would be willing to bet it was the second. I don't know, but I like to think that. Because it said he cast off. You know, he wouldn't have liked everybody telling him to shut up and these guys manhandling him. He knew how to get around. He'd been blind for who knows how long. Take believing personally. Take your life personally. It's your life. That's it. Got one crack. If you believe, you receive. Verse 51, and Jesus answered and said unto him, What wilt thou that I should do unto thee? The blind man said unto him, Lord, that I might receive my sight. And Jesus said unto him, Go your way, man. Your believing made you whole just like that other guy. And immediately he received his sight and followed Jesus in the way. Now how many blind guys are in that crowd? Or ex-blind guys, recently healed blind guys. Now there's two of them. What would that be like? What would the neighbors and people who've seen these guys, one end of town to the other end of town, they all knew these guys. Or have seen them. This is basically the same thing Jesus said to the first guy. Get on with your life now. You just believed to get healed. No touching, no prayers, no glowing hands, no magical beard, no holy water, no pixie dust. You believed. You're healed. Get on out of here, dude. Live it up. Imagine Jesus Christ was so easy to be around. But these guys still wanted to protect him, especially once he says he's about to walk in to get killed, right? So you can understand a little bit why they're being like this. You believe, you receive, period. When your vision is clear, you're not hindered by fear. Healing 2 blind guys is a pretty good day. I might just get a hotel and, turn on the cable and and just relish in all the good. You sit down and tell everybody that stuff. Well, this lesson is still developing. Imagine how blessed Jesus must be to see this. Think his mind is on his upcoming problems now? No way. You think the apostles are realizing that this is a build-up to a greater lesson? No way. Camera 3. Take 1. 2 Upper West Side blind guys. Action. Matthew chapter 20, verse 29. And they departed from Jericho, a great multitude. And as they departed from Jericho, a great multitude followed him. So now what have they? Now they've left. They're leaving like the city limits of Jericho now. And the crowd's out of control now. It's a multitude. One translation calls it a riot, a peaceful riot. It was getting louder and louder. The word great in that verse could be translated the populace. The entire town was out now. Some say that there were 100,000 people that lived in and around Jericho at that time. Imagine just 10% of them cramming through all the streets to see what was going on. This was a spectacle. It's a great multitude. And the kids are doing cartwheels. People are trying to get as close as they can to Jesus. They want to touch him. They want to see him. They've heard about him. Jesus has rock star status at this point. The king is in the house. Thank you very much. He was the man. It was shoulder to shoulder. It was chest to back. They were walking so close they could feel each other's heartbeats. It was just like one mass of flesh just getting pushed through the streets now. It was a multitude. Verse 30, and behold, 2 blind men sitting by the wayside. When they heard that Jesus passed by, which means the front people told him, right? They asked. Remember, it's the internet. That's what people did. They just had how else do you hear? That was their internet. Sitting by the wayside, they heard that Jesus passed by. They cried out, saying, have mercy on us, O Lord, thou son of David. See, these 2 men weren't begging like the first 2. Which tells you what? I'll tell you in a second. After all this is the Upper West Side. This is where the gated communities were. These 2 didn't need to beg. These 2 friends were just surfing the internet of passersby. What's new, good fellow? It's a little different flavor here, a little different attitude. You mean the Jesus Christ is in town? I say. But they too had heard the blind man mantra of deliverance. They'd already heard. It had already spread up to them. They weren't that far out of town. Son of David, help us. I say help us. They were saying it together. But these guys were screaming like crazy too. Okay, I don't want to do it anymore because I'll lose my voice. Son of David, have mercy on us, please. But they were screaming it real nicely. And now Jericho had been partially rebuilt to be a vacation getaway for the wealthy Romans. This was where their third homes, their timeshares were. They had one in Jerusalem, one out near the Mediterranean, and one either near the Galilee or there in Jericho. It was an entirely different climate than Jerusalem too. A totally different ecosystem. It went from Jerusalem up on the hilltop through the brush country, and then it just stopped, and then it just drops down into this valley where Jericho was. That was loaded with these date palms. It was gorgeous. It was scrumptious. It was paradise. There's evidence that people lived there 8,000 years BC and cultivated dates. That's a little longer. They've carbon dated this. That's a little longer than most Christians want to admit. But people had organized communities in that area 8,000 years. That's a couple of thousand years before Adam and Eve. Sound like a Thursday topic. Verse 31. See, these were well-off blind men, but they still wanted to see. They were screaming like local soccer fans at a championship game. I say, bully. No. No, they were just going nuts. These two guys, these upper-class blind guys, were just going absolutely nuts. And the multitude rebuked them. That means, now how many thousands might have been there? Hundreds, thousands. Now everybody's telling them to shut up. The multitude. Because they should hold their peace. You know your place. You know your status. Shut up, good fellow. But they cried the more, saying, have mercy on us, O Lord, Son of David. Now the entire multitude, hundreds, thousands, they scolded them, told them to pipe down, shut up. What a crazy mind picture. This whole group surging out of Jericho from the skinny streets, all these streets, people just keep funneling into this crowd. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger. 32. And Jesus stood still. They too stopped Jesus in his tracks. Believing will still stop the Christ in his tracks. Try it. What will ye that I do unto thee? That's basically the same thing he told the other guys. And this time, Jesus himself walks up to them and in a normal voice asks them what they wanted. He didn't do it. He didn't have other people do it this time. So there's a few differences in these stories. It's not the same thing like almost every researcher in the world says. All you got to do is read the three Gospels side by side and it makes total sense. 33, they say unto him, Lord, that our eyes may be opened. And you think the crowd had piped down by now? Yeah. Now they want to hear what Jesus is saying. Jesus was fully engaged. He was fully locked in with these guys. And he touched their eyes. And immediately their eyes received sight, and they followed him. This time he touched them. Walked up to them and touched their eyes. The other times he just said, you've already believed. Enjoy. And they were healed. See, Jesus knew how to keep it fresh. He knew how to keep it real. He was not trapped by religious functions. He wasn't even trapped by how he did it the last time. See, keep your mind fresh, and you'll see what God really wants you to do. See, to say the crowd was large is an understatement. It was a whole city. And this takes us to blind guy number 5. Number 5. And this is a different kind of blindness. This is a blindness of the heart. Back to camera 1. Luke's holding this one. And take 1, Zach the Hat, action. And the day is far from over. There's so much more to learn. Remember, this is the same day. Luke 19. Luke 19, verse 1. And Jesus entered and passed through Jericho. And behold, there was a man named Zacchaeus, which was chief among the publicans, and he was rich. So who here is fired up about taxes? Oh, only one of you. Publican was a tax collector, and a chief publican was in charge of many tax collectors. Tax collecting for the Romans was less like the IRS and more like Guido collecting protection money from the business owners in Brooklyn. What are you going to do? And I collected $1,000. I give Zach the hat his taste, 800, and Zach gives the Romans the 500 that they wanted. Hey, we're all happy. We all got to dip our beaks. He gets a cut from all his guys. See, this guy's filthy rich and severely hated. He steals from his own people and gives to the rich. Robin Hood is robbing his own hood. Verse 3, and he sought to see Jesus who he was. Why would he have done this? Whose city was it? It was his. He owned Jericho. And could not for the press, there's too many people, because he was of little stature. He was little of stature. He was short. Verse 4, and he ran before, so he ran in front of the whole crowd that was surging out of town. He left his gated house. The gate sort of swung shut by itself, and he ran out, got in front of the crowd, and climbed up into a sycamore tree to see him, for he was to pass that way. This is one road. It wasn't like all these different highways. He knew where he was going to pass. He saw the crowd moving that way. He's not stupid. He's got to check out this interloper, this Johnny-come-lately, this Jesus guy who's taken over some of his turf. See, Guido gives Zach the hat a boost into a tree so that he can scope things out for himself. Verse 5, and when Jesus came to the place, he looked up and saw him. How could you not? The guy had a shiny suit on, had on his little fedora, his shades, his shiny alligator or crocodile shoes, Italian slippers. He was looking good up in that tree. He must have been a sight. And he looked up, saw him, and said to him, Zacchaeus, make haste and come down. For today I must abide at thy house. And he made haste and came down and received him joyfully. This is so random. It's so random. Why on earth would Jesus do this? We were on such a roll. Things were going so good. 4 healings. The crowd's going nuts. And now you say you want to go and hang out with Zach the Hat? Oh my God. Jesus tells Zach, come on down. Let's take this party to your house. Let's get this party started. You can see the music starting to play, the theme music in the background. And Jesus sees something no one else even notices. Forget about it. The emotional momentum from the entire mob is about to deflate. All that momentum, all that energy that was in that crowd, once Jesus starts talking to this guy that they viciously hate, it was like, oh, not him. 7, and when they saw it, they all murmured, saying that he was gone to be guest with this man that's a sinner. Can you believe it? Jesus is going to go hang out with this bad guy. God damn. I thought he was a good guy. He's just like all the rest. I mean, you can imagine what they were doing. And this is spread through this crowd like a cancer, like a fast-moving cancer. This blew the minds of the people. They hated Zacchaeus. They all, hundreds, maybe thousands of people turned on Jesus in unison. They went religious on him. Legalism blinds the heart and binds your believing. Thousands of people went heart blind. 4 got delivered, now 5, and then the multitude just turned inward and shut their eyes. Didn't want to learn anything. 8, Zacchaeus stood and said unto the Lord, Behold, Lord, the half of my goods I give to the poor, and if I have taken anything from any man by false accusation, I restore him fourfold. The term I give to the poor is in the present tense and means I will, starting now, give half of my money to those in need, and I'm going to pay back anybody I've ripped off with 400% interest. Now, was that a change of heart? You think the blind could see? Imagine him all of a sudden, it's like, what have I done? What have I been doing? This is the whole thing. He got what Jesus was trying to teach. Give more than you ever expect, and you'll get back even more. He saw Jesus give what he had, and he too realized that he's on this earth to give back in his own way. Let's each give back to humanity with our unique abundance. 400% might be a good place to start. Give 4 times more than you think you can give. I bet you'll get back, 100 times more than that. It's just the way it is. This spiritually blind guy, number 5, finally sees while the crowd decides to retreat into that dark place of the soul. Verse 9, And Jesus said unto him, This day is salvation come to this house, forasmuch as he also is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man is come to seek and to save that which was lost. Jesus said to Zach, You too have been healed today, not just your eyes, but your heart. You're an example of the giving, believing heart of Abraham. To be compared to Abraham. Didn't Abraham give tithes to Melchizedek? I mean, Abraham was a huge giver. And now he's saying, you're like, you have the same heart as Abraham. I mean, that's quite something. See, we're each here on earth to help those who've lost their way. Now, that's a pretty good calling. But actually, the word lost here is much more sinister than you think. It's really the word destroyed. It's the word destroyed. We're here to help people who've destroyed their lives, who've destroyed their reputations, who've destroyed their health. It's time for us to spread our wings and open our eyes and open our hearts to those in need. Use your ability to help the people who want what you have, who need what you have to give. See, I'm not talking about just poor people. You're going to see how you fit in this thing called human race as you bring your thing to the table. Bring your thing to the table. What is it? Only you know. Yo. See, this is not the end of the lesson yet, but we're getting close. Zach seemed to get it even before the apostles did. The entire town was too prejudiced and socially hateful to learn this lesson, so they turned around and went home. See, loving leadership mixed with personalized service brings us our ultimate springtime. Back to camera one, final lesson, action. See, now Jesus, followed by a much smaller crowd, probably the group that he entered Jericho with, leaves town, 15 miles to go to Jerusalem. But what they had just learned rounded out their entire year of training. Give more than you take. Serve more than you want to be served. That's the big takeaway of the day, folks. That's the pinnacle of learning for anybody who wants to be a leader in this world. It's a pinnacle of learning for anybody who wants to be in this world. Give more than you take. Jesus now breaks into a parable that puts the day's lessons all together and is going to help them get ready to rumble. And they're about to roll into what will become the most traumatic battle any of them have ever faced. And he just gave them the key to victory. And any of us who've been through traumatic events in our past, this is the key to sanity. This is the key to health. This is the key to wealth. This is the key to all that stuff. Give more than you get. Give more than you expect to receive. See, Jesus now breaks into a parable that puts the day's lessons all together. And he tells of a leader who had 10 other leaders under him. Now, if you remember back earlier, he really had to deal with the 10 who got mad at James and John. So we started with 10, and now we're ending with 10. Sort of weird. And this man gave each of them a certain amount of money before he left to go get reassigned or to change his assignment up a little bit. And this is just a parable he's telling. And this guy gave him the money to see what they were going to do with it on their own without being told what to do. Don't wait for somebody to tell you to live. Live. Be. Exist. See, some boldly invested this money, but some, out of fear, buried it. Live free or die trying. I once heard, I'd rather have the blotted page of endeavor than the blank page of surrender. Luke chapter 19, verse 24 from the Message. 4 more verses. Then he said to those standing there, "Take the money from him and give it to the servant who doubled my stake." And we're cutting through a lot of this now, but he had given money. Some of them invested it. Some of them didn't. Some of them were afraid and buried it because they just didn't know what he was going to do because they weren't told what to do with the money. Don't wait for people to tell you to live. Don't wait for people to tell you how to believe. Figure it out. You know how you think. You know how you believe. You know what you need. Go get it. You want wealth? Go get it. It's already given. You want health? Go get it. Figure out how to turn on your believing. Take the money from him and give it to the servant who doubled my stake. And they said, "But master, he already has double. Why should he get any more?" And he said, that's what I mean. Risk your life and get more than you ever dreamed of. Play it safe and end up holding the bag. Empty bag. As for these enemies of mine who petitioned against my rule, clear them out of here. I don't want to see their faces around here again. After saying these things, Jesus headed straight up to Jerusalem. So they leave Jericho. I mean, he does all this stuff. He tells his last parable, and then Jesus shut up. He set his mind, and now he's walking into what he knows will be the last few days of his life. He let the final lesson of the day sink in. and he started the uphill climb to Jerusalem. It started with James and John and their mom asking Jesus for a special place in heaven. Then the other apostles got pissed off and they railed on him. And they heal 4 blind guys as they walk through Jericho. The town's going nuts. The crowd swelled so big and was so noisy that Zacchaeus, or Zach the Hat, had to check out what was going on in his town. What he saw Jesus do and how he saw him give turned on something in his heart that had long ago been buried and switched off. He too could finally see, or once again see, his purpose in life. He acted. Now the apostles are once again reminded that they must use the gift that God gave them, or it will be misplaced. He said taken away, but think of it, your gift doesn't get taken away. It just gets unused. See, maintain your spiritual springtime by getting your mind off of what you want and on to helping others get what they want. See, the greater the leader, the greater the servant. This is the lesson of the springtime in Jericho.